My name is Clara, and my brother stole my $10,000 idea, turned it into $1 million empire, and left me with nothing but a family that called me a failure. I was 23, sitting in the dim glow of my childhood bedroom, the walls papered with sketches and dreams I'd poured my heart into since I was a kid. Those dreams were my lifeline, my way out of a family that always seemed to love me less. My brother Ethan was the golden child, tall, charming, the one who could do no wrong. My parents hung on his every word, their eyes sparkling with pride when he spoke, while I was the afterthought, the quiet girl with her nose in a notebook scribbling ideas they never bothered to ask about. That night, I showed Ethan my latest creation, a blueprint for a renewable energy device, a compact solar panel system that could power entire communities for pennies. I'd spent years researching saving every dollar from my part-time barista job to fund prototypes my hands calloused from soldering circuits in our garage. It was worth $10,000, I told him, my voice trembling with hope. I trusted him. He was my big brother, the one who'd once carried me on his shoulders through summer fairs, promising we'd conquer the world together. He smiled, nodded, and said, "Clara, this is incredible. Let's talk more tomorrow." I went to bed dreaming of our partnership, of finally proving I was more than the family's shadow. The next morning, Ethan was gone. His room was empty, his laptop missing, and my blueprint was no longer tucked inside my desk drawer. I tore through the house, my heart pounding, papers scattering like leaves in a storm. My parents were in the kitchen, sipping coffee unfazed. "He's probably at a meeting," my mom said, waving me off. "Stop being so dramatic, Clara." I tried calling him, texting, but his number was disconnected. Days turned into weeks, and the silence was a knife in my chest. I'd check his social media, hoping for a clue, but his profiles were locked. My parents didn't care. Ethan's busy building his future. My dad said, his voice sharp, "Maybe you should focus on yours instead of obsessing." I felt like I was screaming into a void, my voice swallowed by their indifference. I'd lost my idea, my savings, my trust, and no one cared. I started doubting myself, wondering if maybe I was as useless as they seemed to think. My bedroom became a prison, the sketches on my walls, mocking me, each one a reminder of what I'd given away. I couldn't afford to stay still. I took a second job at a local electronics store, stacking shelves and answering questions about circuit boards while my mind churned. At night, I'd sit at my desk, rebuilding my idea from memory sketching until my fingers cramped. I was fueled by anger, by the betrayal that burned in my chest every time I thought of Ethan's smile. But it wasn't just him. It was my parents too, their casual dismissal, their refusal to see me. They'd always favored Ethan paying for his college, while I scraped by on scholarships and loans. At family dinners, they'd ask about his internships, his plans, while my attempts to share my ideas were met with polite nods or outright interruptions. "Clara, don't bore us with your gadgets," my mom once said, laughing as if my dreams were a punchline. I internalized that laughter, let it carve out pieces of me, until I felt small, invisible. But in that tiny bedroom, with my stolen idea haunting me, I made a promise to myself I would not let them define me. I would take back what was mine, not just the idea, but my worth. Work was grueling, but it introduced me to Maya, a coworker who saw something in me I'd almost forgotten. She was in her 30s with a sharp wit and a warm smile, always tinkering with gadgets in the break room. One day she caught me sketching a circuit diagram on a napkin. "That's not just a doodle," she said, peering over my shoulder. "What's the story?" I hesitated, the wound of Ethan's betrayal still raw, but her kindness disarmed me. I told her everything, my idea, my brother, my family's apathy. She listened without judgment, her eyes steady. "Clara, you're not the problem here," she said. "Your family's blind, but you're not. Keep building. You're onto something big." Her words were a lifeline pulling me out of the fog. Maya became my anchor, teaching me about patents, introducing me to her network of engineers, and sharing her own story of being underestimated as a woman in tech. She'd fought for every opportunity, and her resilience lit a fire in me. I wasn't alone anymore. I started small filing a provisional patent for my reconstructed design, using every cent I earned to cover the fees. It was a gamble, but it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I worked late into the night, refining my solar panel system, making it more efficient, more scalable. I didn't have Ethan's charm or my parents' support, but I had my mind, my hands, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Maya connected me with a local inventors group, a ragtag crew of dreamers who met in a community center basement. They were quirky, passionate, and fiercely supportive, critiquing my designs and cheering my progress. For the first time, I felt seen not as Ethan's little sister or my parents' disappointment, but as Clara the inventor. I began to believe in myself again, to see my work as more than a hobby. But the pain of my family's rejection never fully faded. I'd overhear my mom on the phone bragging about Ethan's genius startup, and my stomach would twist. I didn't know then that he was building his empire on my stolen idea, but I suspected it. The thought drove me harder, my anger a fuel I didn't know I had. Money was tight, and doubt was a constant companion. I'd lie awake wondering if I was chasing a ghost, if Ethan had already won. But Maya's voice echoed in my head. Your work is yours. No one can take that. I took out a small loan to build a prototype, my hands shaking as I signed the papers. It was a risk, but so was trusting Ethan, and I'd learned my lesson. The prototype was rough, but it worked, generating enough power to light a small room. I cried when I flipped the switch, not just for the success, but for the girl who'd almost given up. I started entering competitions, pitching to small investors, each rejection a bruise, but each win a spark. I won a $5,000 grant from a local tech fund, enough to file more patents and build a better prototype. People began to notice engineers, mentors, even a few reporters. They didn't see a failure, they saw a young woman with a vision. I clung to that, letting it rebuild the confidence my family had chipped away. My parents didn't know. I didn't tell them. I'd stopped going to family dinners, tired of their comparisons, their subtle digs. When are you going to get a real job, my dad would ask, as if my work didn't count. I'd smile, say nothing, and leave early. My heart heavy, but my resolve stronger. I was building something, not just a device, but a life, a future where I didn't need their approval. Maya and the Inventors Group became my family, celebrating my small victories and pushing me to aim higher. I applied for a National Innovation Award, a long shot with thousands of applicants. I poured my soul into the application, detailing not just my technology, but my journey every late night, every doubt, every dollar I'd scraped together. I didn't expect to win, but I needed to try. It was my way of shouting into the void, of proving I was still here, still fighting. As I mailed the application, I felt a quiet strength settle in me, a certainty that win or lose, I was no longer the girl Ethan had betrayed. I was Clara, and I was enough. The weeks after submitting my application for the National Innovation Award were a blur of exhaustion and hope. I'd wake up at dawn, my eyes gritty from late nights in the garage soldering circuits and tweaking my prototype. The $5,000 grant was a lifeline, but it was running dry, and the loan payments loomed like storm clouds. I'd taken to eating instant noodles, my apartment a mess of coffee mugs, and scattered blueprints, but there was a fire in me, a stubborn spark that refused to flicker out. I'd catch myself whispering, "You're not done yet." Clara, as if saying it out loud, could make it true. Maya was my rock, showing up with takeout. When I forgot to eat, her laughter, filling the silence of my doubts. "You're a force kid," she'd say, her voice warm but firm. "Don't let the world or your family tell you otherwise." Her belief in me was a mirror reflecting a version of myself. I was only beginning to recognize one who didn't shrink under scrutiny, who didn't apologize for existing. Work at the electronics store was a grind, but it kept me grounded. Customers would come, in some dismissive, others curious, and I'd find myself explaining circuits with a passion that surprised even me. One day, an older man, lingered by the counter watching as I helped a teenager troubleshoot a broken radio. His name was Dr. Patel, a retired engineer who'd overheard my explanation and asked about my projects. Hesitant at first, I shared a watered-down version of my solar panel system, bracing for skepticism. Instead, his eyes lit up. "That's no small feat," he said, handing me his card. "I mentor young inventors. Let's talk." I tucked the card away, my heart racing. It felt like a crack in the universe, a chance I hadn't dared hope for. Dr. Patel became a guide, meeting me weekly at a coffee shop, poring over my designs with a pencil in hand. He didn't sugarcoat his feedback, but his critiques were kind, laced with a quiet faith in my potential. "You've got the mind for this, Clara," he'd say. "Now trust it." My family, meanwhile, was a distant ache. I'd see their posts online, Ethan at some glitzy event, my parents beaming beside him, captions about his groundbreaking startup. Each photo was a punch, a reminder of the blueprint he'd stolen the $10,000 idea I'd poured my soul into. I didn't have proof, not yet, but the timing of his success gnawed at me. His company Solar Flare was making waves, touted as a renewable energy game-changer. The articles never mentioned me, but they didn't have to. I recognized my work in the sleek panels, the efficient design. It was like seeing a piece of myself paraded under someone else's name. I wanted to scream to confront him, but what could I say? He was the star, and I was the sister no one believed in. My parents didn't call, didn't ask why I'd stopped coming to dinners. Their silence said enough I wasn't worth their time. That hurt more than Ethan's betrayal, a deeper cut that bled every time I let myself think about it. Dr. Patel pushed me to focus, to channel my anger into my work. "You can't control what they do," he said one evening, his voice steady, "but you can control what you create." I took his advice, diving deeper into my project. I refined my solar system, making it cheaper, more portable, perfect for rural communities. I started a blog anonymous, at first sharing my designs and ideas. To my surprise, it gained traction. Engineers, students, even small nonprofits reached out, asking questions, offering support. I wasn't just building a device anymore. I was building a community, a space where people like me dreamers, the world overlooked, could find each other. The blog became my voice, a way to reclaim the narrative Ethan had stolen. I called myself Spark V, a nod to the spark I refused to let die. Every comment, every share was a reminder that my work mattered even if my family didn't see it. Money was still a problem. The loan payments ate into my savings, and I was barely keeping up. I'd lie awake calculating how many shifts I'd need to cover rent, how many prototypes I could afford to fail. But then came a small miracle, an email from the Innovation Award Committee. I'd made the semifinals, one of 50 applicants out of thousands. My hands shook as I read the words, tears blurring the screen. It wasn't just the $50,000 prize. It was the validation, the chance to stand on a stage and say, "I did this." I told Maya first, and she whooped, pulling me into a hug that smelled of solder and jasmine. "This is just the start, Clara," she said. "You're going to change the world." Dr. Patel was quieter, his smile proud but measured. "Prepare for the next round," he said. "Show them who you are." I threw myself into the presentation, practicing in front of my mirror, my voice wobbling at first but growing stronger. I wasn't just pitching a product, I was pitching myself, my fight, my refusal to break. The semi-final round was in Chicago, a city I'd never visited, its skyline glittering like a promise. I scraped together the money for a bus ticket, my stomach knotted with nerves. The venue was a sleek convention center, filled with polished professionals and inventors who seemed light years ahead of me. I felt small in my second-hand blazer, my prototype tucked under my arm like a shield. But when I took the stage, something shifted. I spoke about my system, yes, but also about why it mattered, about communities without power, about dreamers dismissed, about fighting for a place in a world that tried to erase you. The judges leaned forward, their pens still. The audience clapped, not politely, but with a warmth that wrapped around me like a blanket. I didn't win that round, but I placed in the top 10, earning a $10,000 grant and an invitation to a national tech conference. It was more than I dreamed of, a foothold in a world that was starting to see me. Back home, I used the grant to file more patents protecting every iteration of my design. I was paranoid now, checking locks, encrypting files, haunted by Ethan's theft. My blog grew, and with it, my confidence. I started speaking at local events, small at first, libraries, community centers, but each talk built my voice. People listened, asked questions, saw me as an inventor, not a failure. Maya and Dr. Patel were there every step, cheering, critiquing, reminding me I wasn't alone. But my family remained a ghost. I'd hear about Ethan's latest deal, his $1 million funding round, and the pain would flare sharp and raw. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed to be undeniable, to build something so big no one could ignore it. I was 24 now, and the girl who'd trusted her brother was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who knew her worth, even if her family didn't. I was Spark V, and I was just getting started. The tech conference invitation was a turning point, a door creaking open to a world I'd only dreamed of. I was 24, still living in my cramped apartment. My life a patchwork of late-night soldering and early morning shifts at the electronics store. The $10,000 grant from the Innovation Award semifinals had eased the pressure, letting me pay off part of my loan and buy better materials for my prototype. But money wasn't the real gift. It was the belief, the quiet certainty that I was on the right path. I'd clutched the conference badge when it arrived in the mail, my name printed in bold, Clara Nguyen, inventor. It felt like a title I'd earned, not borrowed, and I'd hold it to my chest, letting the weight of it anchor me. Maya threw a small celebration, just the two of us, with cheap wine and pizza. Her eyes shining as she toasted to Spark V, the girl who's going to light up the world. Dr. Patel sent a handwritten note, his words precise. "This is your moment, Clara. Seize it." Their faith carried me, but the ache of my family's absence lingered, a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. The conference was in San Francisco, a city that felt like another planet, with its fog-draped hills and tech giants' gleaming towers. I'd never flown before, and the plane ride was a mix of terror and awe, my stomach lurching as I gripped my prototype's case. I'd poured weeks into preparing, refining my solar panel system, until it was sleek, efficient, and ready for scrutiny. My blog Spark V had grown to a few thousand followers, and I'd posted about the conference, nervous but excited. The responses flooded in, strangers wishing me luck, engineers offering tips, a nonprofit asking to collaborate. It was overwhelming, this sense of being seen, and I'd read their messages late at night, tears pricking my eyes. But I couldn't shake the fear that I'd fail, that I'd step into this glittering world and be exposed as the fraud my family believed me to be. Ethan's shadow loomed, his solar flare startup, now valued at $5 million, its panels, eerily similar to my stolen design. I hadn't confronted him, I didn't have the proof or the strength, but every article about his success was a reminder of what he'd taken. San Francisco was a whirlwind. The conference center buzzed with energy, packed with inventors, investors, and reporters in sharp suits. I felt out of place in my thrift store dress, my prototype tucked under my arm, like a talisman. But when I set up my booth, something shifted. People stopped, asked questions, their eyes lighting up as I explained how my system could power a village for less than $1,000. I spoke with a confidence I didn't know. I had my voice steady, my hands gesturing to the panels I'd built with my own calloused fingers. A woman in her 50s, Dr. Elena Marquez, lingered longest. She was a renewable energy pioneer, her name on textbooks I'd studied. "This is bold," she said, her gaze sharp but kind. "You're solving a real problem, Clara. Keep going." She handed me her card, suggesting I apply for a fellowship at her institute. I nodded, too stunned to speak, my heart pounding with possibility. That night, I spoke on a panel for young inventors, My first time on a stage that big. The lights were blinding the audience, a sea of faces, but I told my story, not just the tech, but the why. I spoke of growing up invisible, of pouring my soul into an idea, only to have it stolen of building anyway. Because giving up wasn't an option. I didn't name Ethan, but the weight of his betrayal hung in my words. The room was quiet, then erupted in applause, and I felt a rush of something new pride. Strangers approached me after sharing their own stories of being underestimated, their voices raw with connection. I realized then that Spark V wasn't just me, it was all of us, the dreamers fighting to be heard. I left the conference with contacts, a $15,000 investment offer from a small green tech fund, and a fire in my chest. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was building. Back home, I quit the electronics store. It was a risk, but the investment and my blog's growing ad revenue gave me a cushion. I rented a tiny workshop, a former storage unit with flickering lights, and turned it into my lab. Maya helped me set up, her laughter echoing as we hauled in equipment. Dr. Patel visited, his eyes crinkling as he saw my progress. "You're not chasing your brother anymore," he said. "You're outrunning him." I wanted to believe him, but Ethan's success still stung. Solar flare was everywhere, billboards, tech magazines, even a TED Talk. My parents sent me a rare text, a photo of them with Ethan at his latest gala. No message, just the image. It was a slap, a reminder of their choice. I didn't reply, but I saved the photo, letting the hurt fuel me. I worked harder, filing patents for every tweak to my system, my lawyer's fees eating into my funds. I was paranoid, checking my files daily, but I'd learned from Ethan, trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. My blog became a platform, not just for my tech, but for my voice. I wrote about failure, about betrayal, about the quiet strength of starting over. My followers grew to tens of thousands, and I started a newsletter sharing free designs for small-scale solar projects. Nonprofits reached out, asking to pilot my system in rural areas. I said yes, traveling to a small town to install my panels, watching kids' faces light up as their school glowed with power. It was the first time I saw my work change lives, and it broke something open in me, a hunger to do more, to be more. I applied for Dr. Marquez's fellowship, pouring my heart into the essay, and won a $50,000 grant to develop my tech further. The news came on a rainy afternoon, and I sobbed, not just for the money, but for the girl who'd once thought she was nothing. Maya threw another pizza party, Dr. Patel sent another note, and I felt for the first time like I was winning. But the past wouldn't stay buried. I got an email from a tech journalist, Sarah Lynn, who'd been following Spark V. She was investigating solar flare, suspicious of its origins. "Your designs look similar," she wrote. "Can we talk?" My heart raced. I'd avoided this. The confrontation, the risk of being wrong. But Sarah's questions mirrored my own, and I agreed to meet. Over coffee, I told her everything, my blueprint, Ethan's disappearance, the timing of his success. She listened, her pen flying, and promised to dig deeper. "If he stole it, we'll find out," she said. I wanted to believe her, but fear clung to me. What if I was wrong? What if I was right? Either way, the truth was coming, and I wasn't sure I was ready. I went back to my workshop, my hands steady, as I soldered, my mind a storm. I was building an empire, patent by patent, life by life. But Ethan's shadow was still there, and I knew deep down that our story wasn't over. The fellowship from Dr. Marquez's institute was a lifeline, a $50,000 infusion that let me breathe for the first time in years. I was 25, standing in my workshop, surrounded by humming machines and blueprints pinned to the walls like battle plans. The space was small, but it was mine, every inch, earned with sweat and sleepless nights. The grant meant I could hire a part-time assistant, a shy engineering student named Leo who'd found me through my Spark V blog. He was quiet but brilliant, his hands steady, as he helped me build larger prototypes. With his help, I scaled my solar panel system, designing models that could power entire schools or clinics for under $5,000. Each test run, each glowing light, felt like a victory, a middle finger to the family who'd called me nothing. But victory was bittersweet. Ethan's solar flare was now valued at $10 million, its logo plastered across tech conferences and city buses. Every ad I saw was a twist of the knife, a reminder of the $10,000 idea he'd stolen the blueprint I'd trusted him with. I hadn't heard from Sarah Lynn the journalist in weeks, and the silence gnawed at me. Was she close to the truth, or had I opened a wound for nothing? My blog was exploding with over 50,000 followers now. People from all over the world, engineers, activists, single moms like me who saw themselves in my story. I'd started a YouTube channel, posting videos of my prototypes and sharing the messy truth of my journey, the betrayal, the doubt, the fight to keep going. The comments were a lifeline, strangers saying, "You're my hero," or "I was underestimated too." I'd read them late at night, tears streaking my face, feeling less alone. The channel brought in $2,000 a month from ads enough to cover rent and keep the workshop running. I was invited to speak at more events, colleges, tech meetups, even a women's leadership summit. Each stage was a chance to rewrite my story, to stand tall as Clara, not Ethan's shadow. At the summit, I met Priya, a venture capitalist, who saw my presentation and pulled me aside. "Your tech is revolutionary," she said, her eyes sharp. "I want to invest $100,000. Let's talk." I nodded, my throat tight, barely believing it was real. Priya's firm, Greenwave Ventures, became my first major backer, and with their support, I incorporated my company, Spark Vision, naming it after the blog that had saved me. Money changed things, but not the way I'd expected. I could afford better equipment, a second assistant, even a small office with actual windows. But it also brought pressure. Investors wanted results, timelines, scalability. I'd lie awake, my mind racing with numbers, production costs, patent fees, the $20,000 I still owed on my loan. I was terrified of failing, not just for myself, but for Maya, Dr. Patel, Leo, and the thousands who believed in Spark V. I pushed harder, working 16-hour days, my hands raw from assembling panels, my voice hoarse from pitching to nonprofits and governments. We landed a $200,000 contract to install my systems in a rural school district, a project that would bring power to 1,000 kids. The day we flipped the switch, I stood in a dusty classroom, watching bulbs flicker to life, kids cheering as their teacher wiped away tears. I cried too, not just for them, but for the girl who'd once thought her dreams were worthless. It was proof tangible and bright that I was more than my family's dismissal. But home was still a battlefield. I hadn't spoken to my parents in months, their silence a wall I didn't know how to climb. I'd see their posts online, always with Ethan Gallus vacations, captions about our brilliant son. It was like I didn't exist. I'd stopped expecting an apology, but the rejection still burned, a quiet ache that flared when I least expected it. One night, I got a call from my mom, the first in nearly a year. Her voice was clipped formal. "Clara, we're having a family dinner for Ethan's engagement. You should come." No mention of my work. My life just in order to show up and play the dutiful sister. I wanted to say no, to scream about the years they'd ignored me, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the faint hope they'd finally see me. "I'll think about it," I said, hanging up before I could change my mind. I didn't go. Instead, I sent a polite text citing work and spent the night in my office sketching new designs. It hurt, but it was my choice, a small act of reclaiming my power. Sarah Lynn reached out again, her email landing like a bomb. She'd found evidence, early solar flare documents, emails between Ethan and an engineer, referencing a source design that matched my blueprint. It wasn't airtight, but it was close. "We need your original files," she wrote. "Can you meet me?" My hands shook as I dug through my old laptop, finding scans of my sketches dated before Ethan's disappearance. I met Sarah in a crowded cafe, passing her a USB drive, my heart in my throat. "This could be big, Clara," she said, her voice low. "But it's risky. Ethan's connected now. Are you ready for what comes next? I wasn't sure, but I nodded. I was tired of hiding, tired of letting his theft define me. Sarah promised to keep digging, and I went back to work. My mind a tangle of fear and resolve. I didn't tell Maya or Dr. Patel yet. I needed to be certain before I let hope take root. Spark Vision was growing, and so was I. Priya's investment let us hire more staff, including a patent lawyer, Rachel, who became my fiercest ally. She filed claims for every innovation building a fortress around my work. We secured another $500,000 in funding this time from a global energy consortium, and I was invited to keynote at a major renewables conference in Berlin. The invitation came with a $10,000 honorarium, but the real prize was the platform, a chance to speak to 5,000 people, including industry giants. I prepared for weeks, practicing until my voice was steady, my story sharp. I wasn't just selling my tech. I was selling my truth, my fight, my refusal to be erased. The conference was a blur of jet lag and adrenaline, but when I took the stage, I felt alive. I told my story, not shying away from the pain, Ethan's betrayal, my family's rejection, the nights I'd almost given up. The audience stood clapping for what felt like forever, and I saw Dr. Marquez in the crowd, her nod a quiet approval. I was no longer the girl in the shadows. I was Clara Nguyen, founder of Spark Vision, and I was building an empire. Berlin brought more than applause. A UN agency approached me, offering a $1 million contract to pilot my systems in 3 countries. I signed the deal in my hotel room, my hands trembling, knowing this could change millions of lives. Back home, I expanded the team, moving to a larger office, my days filled with meetings and my nights with designs. I was exhausted, but alive, driven by a purpose bigger than revenge. Yet Ethan's shadow lingered. Sarah's investigation was gaining traction, and she warned me to brace for pushback. "He knows we're looking," she said. I felt a chill, but I was done running. I'd built something real, something mine, and no one, not Ethan, not my parents, could take that away. I was ready for the fight, whatever it cost. Have you ever had to face someone who hurt? You knowing the truth might break everything. What gave you the strength to keep going? The $1 million UN contract was a dream I hadn't dared imagine, a chance to bring light to places that had never known it. I was 26, standing in the new Spark Vision office, a converted warehouse with high ceilings and windows that let in the morning sun. The space hummed with energy. 10 employees, now a mix of engineers, designers, and dreamers like me, all working to make my solar panels a reality for millions. Leo, my first hire, was still there, no longer shy, leading a team to test our latest model. Rachel, my patent lawyer, had become a friend, her sharp mind a shield against anyone who tried to undermine us. The office walls were covered in sketches, maps of pilot sites, and photos from the rural schools we'd powered. Every image was a reminder of why I kept going, why I couldn't stop, even when the weight of it all threatened to crush me. But Ethan's shadow was growing darker. Sarah Lynn's investigation was stirring up trouble, and I could feel the storm coming, a collision I'd avoided for too long. The UN project meant travel, and I threw myself into it, flying to remote villages in Senegal, Guatemala, and Nepal. I'd step off planes jet-lagged and nervous into communities where kids ran barefoot and elders greeted me with wary smiles. Installing the panels was grueling, long days under blazing sun. My hands blistered from tools, my voice hoarse from explaining the tech in broken phrases. But when the lights came on, when a clinic's fridge hummed to life, or a classroom glowed, the exhaustion melted away. I'd watch mothers cry, knowing their kids could study at night, and I'd feel a purpose so deep it hurt. In Senegal, a girl named Awa, no older than 10, hugged me and said, "You made the dark go away." I kept her words like a talisman, whispering them when doubt crept in. The contract brought in $500,000, upfront enough to hire more staff and fund new patents, but it also brought scrutiny. Reporters started calling not just about Spark Vision, but about me, my story, my blog, my fight. I was no longer invisible, and that terrified me as much as it thrilled me. Back home, my inbox was flooded. Nonprofits wanted partnerships, investors wanted meetings, and my YouTube channel hit 100,000 subscribers. The ad revenue now $5,000 a month. I'd post videos from the field, raw and unpolished, sharing the highs and lows, malfunctioning panels, triumphant installations, the loneliness of hotel rooms far from home. My followers left comments that broke my heart open. "You're proof we can rise," or "My family doesn't see me either, but you give me hope." I'd reply to as many as I could, feeling a responsibility to them, to the Clara I'd been, at 23 lost and betrayed. Priya, my investor, pushed me to think bigger, urging me to pitch to global energy firms. "You're not just a startup," she said, her voice firm. "You're a movement." We raised another $2 million in funding, valuing Spark Vision at $20 million. The numbers were dizzying, but I didn't feel rich. I felt driven, every dollar reinvested into the mission, into the lives we could change. My family, though, was a wound that wouldn't heal. I hadn't spoken to them since my mom's curt invitation to Ethan's engagement dinner, the one I'd skipped. I'd see their lives unfold online. Ethan's fiancée, a polished influencer posing with my parents at charity galas. Their smiles perfect, their captions glowing. It was like I'd been erased, my existence reduced to a footnote they'd rather forget. I tried not to care, but the hurt was a pulse, steady and unrelenting. I'd dream of confronting them, of showing them my office, my contracts, my truth, but the thought left me hollow. What would it change? They'd chosen Ethan, and that choice was a wall I couldn't breach. Still, I kept tabs on SolarFlare, unable to stop myself. It was worth $15 million now, expanding into Europe, and every article felt like a theft renewed. Sarah Lynn's emails were sporadic, but urgent. She'd found more evidence, patent filings with discrepancies, an early prototype photo that matched my sketches. "We're close," she wrote, "but Ethan's lawyers are circling. Be careful." I felt a chill, knowing he was powerful, now connected, untouchable. But I wasn't the girl he'd betrayed anymore. I was Clara Nguyen, and I was ready. The Berlin conference keynote had opened doors, and one led to a meeting with a major energy firm, EcoVolt, in New York. They wanted to license my technology for $5 million with royalties that could reach $10 million over 5 years. I flew out, my stomach knotted, practicing my pitch in the hotel mirror. The boardroom was intimidating, all glass and sharp suits. But I held my ground, presenting my system with data from our pilots, 97% efficiency, 30% cheaper than competitors. They leaned forward, asking questions, and I answered with a clarity that surprised me. We shook hands, the deal tentative but real, and I walked out into the city, the skyline glittering like a promise. I called Maya, my voice shaking with excitement, and she screamed, "You're a badass." Clara, Dr. Patel, sent a text, "Well done. Now keep climbing." I felt unstoppable, but the high was fleeting. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Clara. You'll regret it." My blood ran cold. Was it Ethan, his lawyers? I didn't know, but the threat was a spark, igniting my resolve. I forwarded it to Sarah, who replied, "We're onto something. Stay strong." I threw myself back into work, channeling the fear into action. We launched a new pilot in India, powering a women's cooperative, and the images, women weaving under bright lights. Their smiles wide went viral, boosting Spark Vision's profile. I was invited to speak at the UN, a 5-minute slot at a climate summit, and I poured my soul into it, talking about equity, access, and the power of believing in yourself when no one else does. The applause was deafening, and a UN official approached me after hinting at a $10 million grant to expand our work. I was living a life I'd never imagined, but the past was catching up. Sarah called, her voice tense. She'd found a whistleblower, a former SolarFlare engineer, who claimed Ethan had used borrowed designs to launch the company. The engineer had proof, emails, sketches, even a recorded call. "We're going public," Sarah said. "Next month in Tech Pulse magazine. Are you in?" My heart pounded. This was it, the truth laid bare, but it meant war. I thought of Awa, the girl in Senegal, of my team, of the Clara, who'd almost given up. "I'm in," I said, my voice steady. I was done hiding, the fight was coming, and I'd face it head on. The weeks before the article were a blur of preparation. Rachel, my lawyer, built a case, gathering my original files, patent records, anything to prove my claim. I didn't tell my team everything, not wanting to worry them, but Maya sensed it. "Whatever's coming, you've got this," she said, squeezing my hand. I clung to that, to the belief of the people who'd become my family. Spark Vision was thriving, our valuation, now $30 million, our systems lighting up lives across 4 continents. I was no longer just an inventor, I was a leader, a voice for those who'd been silenced. But as the article's release loomed, I felt the weight of what it could cost. Ethan wasn't just my brother, he was a symbol of everything I'd fought against: doubt, betrayal, the world's refusal to see me. I didn't know what would happen when the truth came out, but I knew I was ready. Have you ever stood at the edge of a truth so big it could change everything? What gave you the courage to leap? The Tech Pulse article was a ticking bomb, and I felt its pulse in every moment of my days. I was 26, running Spark Vision, from an office that now felt like a fortress, its walls lined with awards maps and photos of the communities we'd powered. Our valuation had climbed to $40 million, with the UN grant finalized at $10 million and the EcoVolt licensing deal bringing in $5 million up front. My team had grown to 20, a tight-knit group who believed in our mission to bring light to the overlooked. Leo was now my lead engineer, his quiet brilliance anchoring our projects. Rachel, my lawyer, was a warrior, her desk piled with documents, as she prepared for the legal storm the article might unleash. Maya and Dr. Patel remained my constants, their encouragement a shield against the fear that gnawed at me. Sarah Lynn's whistleblower had delivered a recorded call, where Ethan admitted to using a borrowed design, my design to launch solar flare. The article set to drop in 2 weeks would name me as the true creator, backed by emails, sketches, and the whistleblower's testimony. It was the truth I'd craved, but it came with a cost. Ethan's company was worth $20 million now, and he had lawyers' connections power. I was ready to fight, but I wasn't naive. This could break everything or make it. Work was my refuge. We were scaling our pilots, installing solar systems in 50 villages across 5 countries. I'd fly out for launches, my heart swelling as lights flickered on in schools, clinics, homes. In Guatemala, an elder grasped my hand, his eyes wet, saying, "You've given us a future." I carried those moments back to the office, letting them fuel me through sleepless nights. My YouTube channel hit 200,000 subscribers, the ad revenue now $10,000 a month, and I used it to fund a scholarship for women in STEM, named after Awa, the girl from Senegal, who'd thanked me for chasing the dark away. The scholarship was my way of paying forward the belief Maya and Dr. Patel had given me, a reminder that my work was bigger than revenge. But revenge was still there, a quiet hum beneath my purpose. Every solar flare ad, every article praising Ethan, was a spark to that flame. I didn't want to destroy him, not really, but I wanted the world to know the truth, to see me as more than his shadow. The article's release loomed, and tension coiled in me like a spring. Sarah sent drafts, each paragraph a gut punch. My sketches reproduced the whistleblower's quotes, damning my story laid bare. Clara Nguyen, the unsung genius behind Solar Flare's rise, one line read, and I cried not from sadness, but from the weight of being seen. Rachel warned me to brace for backlash. Ethan's team will hit hard, she said. Defamation countersuits may be worse. I knotted my jaw tight. I'd already gotten another anonymous text, "Back off, or you'll lose everything." I showed it to Rachel, who traced it to a burner phone untrackable. Maya wanted me to hire security, but I refused, not wanting to live in fear. Instead, I poured my energy into Spark Vision, launching a new model that cut costs by 20%, earning praise from industry blogs. We secured a $3 million contract with a South Asian government, and Priya, my investor, called it a game changer. I was building an empire patent by patent, light by light, and no threat could dim that. My family was a ghost, their absence louder than ever. I hadn't heard from my parents since the engagement dinner invite, and I'd stopped checking their social media, the pain too raw. But a week before the article, my mom called. Her voice was shaky, not cold this time. "Clara, we need to talk. Ethan's in trouble." My heart stopped. Trouble. Was it the article, I asked, but she was vague, saying only that he was stressed and I should come to dinner. "We're family," she said, as if that word hadn't lost its meaning years ago. I wanted to scream to ask why they cared now, but I said I'm busy and hung up. The call left me rattled to memories of their favoritism, flooding back Ethan's college fund, their pride in his every step, their dismissal of mine. I didn't go to the dinner, but I wondered what they knew, if Ethan had warned them. The thought of facing him, of seeing his face, when the truth came out, made my stomach churn. I wasn't ready, but I had to be. The UN speech had made me a name in renewables, and invitations poured in keynotes, panels, even a TEDx talk. I said yes to the TEDx, spending weeks crafting a speech about resilience, about building when the world bets against you. The event was in Seattle, a packed auditorium of 2,000 people, their eyes on me as I shared my story. I didn't mention Ethan by name, but I spoke of betrayal, of losing something you loved, and finding the strength to rebuild. Your worth isn't in what others take. I said, my voice steady. It's in what you create. The standing ovation shook me, strangers approaching with tears in their eyes, saying I'd inspired them to keep going. A tech CEO offered me a $5 million partnership on the spot, and I walked away feeling like I could face anything, even Ethan. The TEDx video went viral, hitting 1 million views in a week. My inbox flooded with messages from women who'd been underestimated, their stories echoing mine. I was no longer just Clara, I was Spark V, a symbol of fighting back. Sarah's final email came 3 days before the article. "It's done," she wrote. TechPulse goes live Monday. Ethan's team knows expect chaos. She included a link to the draft, and reading it felt like standing on a cliff. My sketches, my words, my truth, all there in black and white, alongside proof that Ethan had built solar flare on my $10,000 idea. The whistleblower's call was the clincher, Ethan's voice clear. "I got the design from a source. It's not mine, but no one's asking." I felt sick, vindicated, terrified. Rachel had our patents locked down, over 50 now, protecting every inch of Spark Vision's tech, valued at $600 million in potential licensing deals. We were ready for the legal fight, but the personal one I didn't know. I told Maya and Dr. Patel, their faces grim but proud. "You're not alone in this," Maya said, hugging me tight. Dr. Patel nodded. "You've built something honest. That's your power." I clung to their words, knowing the world was about to change. The weekend before the article, I flew to Nepal for a pilot launch, needing to ground myself in the work. The village was remote, the air sharp with mountain cold. As we installed the panels, a grandmother invited me into her home, serving tea in cracked cups. She didn't speak English, but her smile said enough, her hand warm on mine. I thought of my own family, of the warmth I'd never had, and felt a pang of grief. But I also felt strength, knowing I'd built a family of my own, Maya, Dr. Patel, Leo, the communities we served. The launch was a success, the village glowing under my lights, and I flew back with a quiet resolve. The article was coming, and with it, the truth. I didn't know if Ethan would fight, if my parents would care, or if the world would believe me. But I knew I'd built something real, something no one could steal. I was Clara Nguyen, and I was done being afraid. Have you ever faced a moment where the truth could cost you everything? What made you choose to fight? The TechPulse article dropped on a Monday morning, and the world shifted under my feet. I was 26, sitting in Spark Vision's office, the hum of my team's work, a steady backdrop as I refreshed the magazine's website. The headline hit like a thunderclap, "The Stolen Spark." How Clara Nguyen's $10,000 idea became solar flare's $20 million empire. My sketches were there, side by side with solar flare's designs. The whistleblower's call transcribed Ethan's voice, admitting he'd taken a source design. Sarah Lynn had woven my story into every paragraph. My years of struggle, my betrayal, my rise with Spark Vision, now valued at $600 million in potential deals. I read it 3 times, my hands trembling, tears blurring the screen. This was my truth, laid bare for the world, but it wasn't triumph I felt, not yet. It was exposure, raw and terrifying, like standing naked in a storm. My phone buzzed with notifications, reporters, followers, strangers. But I silenced it, needing a moment to breathe. Maya burst in her eyes wide, holding up her phone. "Clara, it's everywhere," she said, pulling me into a hug. "You did it." But I wasn't sure what I'd done, not yet. The fight was just beginning. By noon, the article was viral. My YouTube channel surged to 300,000 subscribers, the TEDx video hitting 2 million views. Twitter was a battlefield, Jacker Spark V trending alongside Hancha solar flare scandal. Supporters calling me a hero, skeptics accusing me of jealousy. "She's just a bitter sister," one tweet read, and it stung, echoing my parents' dismissal. But the support drowned it out, women sharing their own stories of theft engineers. Praising my patents, nonprofits vowing to back Spark Vision. The UN called reaffirming their $10 million grant, and EcoVolt wired the first $2 million of our licensing deal, their CEO emailing. "We stand with you, Clara." I felt the world shifting, not just for me, but for everyone who'd been silenced. Yet Ethan's response loomed. Sarah warned he'd hired a top PR firm, and by evening, Solar Flare issued a statement. "We deny these baseless allegations and are pursuing legal action against TechPulse and Clara Nguyen." My stomach dropped. Rachel was ready, our patents airtight, but the threat of a lawsuit was a shadow I couldn't shake. The next day, my parents called. I was in a meeting, but Leo handed me the phone, his face grim. My mom's voice was sharp, panicked. "Clara, how could you do this to Ethan? To us?" No hello, no questions about me, just accusation. I felt 19 again, invisible in their kitchen. "He stole my work, Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "Did you read the article?" She paused, then said, "You're tearing this family apart. Come to the house tonight. We need to fix this, as if I were the problem. I wanted to scream, to ask why they'd never fixed their neglect, but I said I'll think about it and hung up. I didn't go. Instead, I went to the workshop's soldering panels until my hands steadied the rhythm grounding me. Maya found me there, her voice soft. "You don't owe them anything, Clara?" I nodded, but the ache was a live wire sparking with every thought of them. The media frenzy grew. I gave one interview to Sarah's editor at TechPulse, speaking calmly about my journey, my tech, my truth. It aired on CNN, and suddenly I was a face, Clara Nguyen, the inventor who'd fought back. Invitations poured in, keynotes, TV shows, a Forbes 30 Under 30 nomination. Spark Vision's office became a hub, reporters camped outside my team. Fielding calls, we landed a $5 million contract with a European NGO, and Priya, my investor, pushed for a new funding round, projecting a $100 million valuation. I was living a dream, but it felt like running on glass, every step a risk of breaking. Ethan's silence was deafening, no call, no text, just his lawyer's threats. Sarah uncovered more, a second whistleblower, a designer who'd seen my sketches in Ethan's office. The evidence was mounting, and Rachel filed a lawsuit, claiming intellectual property theft and damages of $50 million. It was a bold move, one that could bankrupt Solar Flare or me if we lost. The confrontation came at a tech gala in San Francisco, a black tie event I'd been invited to as a keynote speaker. I hadn't planned to attend, but Dr. Marquez, my mentor, urged me. "Show them you're not afraid," she said. So I went in a $200 dress I'd bought secondhand, my heart pounding, as I stepped into a room of industry giants. Ethan was there. I saw him across the ballroom, laughing with investors, his fiancée gleaming beside him. My parents were there too, their faces tight, avoiding my gaze. I felt the air shift when people noticed me, whispers spreading. Spark V, the woman who'd taken on solar flare. I took the stage, my speech about innovation and integrity, every word a quiet jab at Ethan's theft. No one can steal your spark, I said, my eyes finding his. It's in what you build, what you fight for. The applause was thunderous, and I saw Ethan's smile falter, his fiancée gripping his arm. After he approached me alone, his face a mask of charm. "Clara, can we talk?" he said, as if we were kids again, sharing secrets. I knotted my throat tight, and we stepped into a quiet corner. "You're ruining everything," he said, his voice low. "Why can't you let this go?" I stared at him, the brother I'd loved, the thief who'd broken me. "You stole my work, Ethan," I said, "my $10,000 idea, my years of sacrifice. Why can't you admit it?" He flinched, then leaned in, his voice cold. "You'll lose, Clara. I'm bigger than you." I held his gaze, my voice steady. "Not anymore." I walked away, my heart racing, feeling the room's eyes on me. My parents watched from a distance, their faces pale, but they didn't approach. The gala ended with a standing ovation for my work, and Dr. Marquez hugged me, whispering, "You're unstoppable." The fallout was swift. Solar Flare's stock plummeted, investors pulling out as the scandal grew. Ethan's fiancée left him her Instagram vague, but pointed. My parents called again, begging me to drop the lawsuit, saying Ethan was struggling. I listened, my heart heavy, but said he made his choice. So did you. I hung up, tears falling, but I didn't waver. Rachel's case gained traction, the court granting an injunction to freeze Solar Flare's patents pending review. Spark Vision thrived, our systems. Now in 100 villages, our team growing to 30. I was named to Forbes's list, my face on the cover, the headline, "Clara Nguyen, the spark that changed energy." I framed it not for vanity, but as proof of what I'd survived. The gala had been my face turn the moment the world saw me. Not Ethan's sister, but Clara, the inventor who'd fought and won. Have you ever faced someone who took everything from you? What did it take to stand your ground? The Tech Pulse article dropped on a Monday morning, and the world shifted under my feet. I was 26, sitting in Spark Vision's office, the hum of my team's work a steady backdrop as I refreshed the magazine's website. The headline hit like a thunderclap, "The Stolen Spark." How Clara Nguyen's $10,000 idea became Solar Flare's $20 million empire. My sketches were there side by side with Solar Flare's designs. The whistleblower's call transcribed Ethan's voice, admitting he'd taken a source design. Sarah Lynn had woven my story into every paragraph. My years of struggle, my betrayal. My rise with Spark Vision, now valued at $600 million in potential deals. I read it 3 times, my hands trembling, tears blurring the screen. This was my truth laid bare for the world, but it wasn't triumph I felt, not yet. It was exposure, raw and terrifying, like standing naked in a storm. My phone buzzed with notifications, reporters, followers, strangers, but I silenced it, needing a moment to breathe. Maya burst in, her eyes wide, holding up her phone. "Clara, it's everywhere," she said, pulling me into a hug. "You did it." But I wasn't sure what I'd done, not yet. The fight was just beginning. By noon, the article was viral. My YouTube channel surged to 300,000 subscribers. The TEDx video hitting 2 million views. Twitter was a battlefield, Jotier Spark V trending alongside Duck's Solar Flare scandal. Supporters calling me a hero, skeptics accusing me of jealousy. "She's just a bitter sister," one tweet read, and it stung, echoing my parents' dismissal. But the support drowned it out, women sharing their own stories of theft, engineers praising my patents, nonprofits vowing to back Spark Vision. The UN called, reaffirming their $10 million grant, and EcoVolt wired the first $2 million of our licensing deal, their CEO emailing, "We stand with you, Clara." I felt the world shifting, not just for me, but for everyone who'd been silenced. Yet Ethan's response loomed. Sarah warned he'd hired a top PR firm, and by evening, Solar Flare issued a statement. We deny these baseless allegations and are pursuing legal action against TechPulse and Clara Nguyen. My stomach dropped. Rachel was ready our patents airtight, but the threat of a lawsuit was a shadow I couldn't shake. The next day, my parents called. I was in a meeting, but Leo handed me the phone, his face grim. My mom's voice was sharp, panicked. Clara, how could you do this to Ethan? To us, no hello. No questions about me, just accusation. I felt 19 again, invisible, in their kitchen. He stole my work, Mom, I said, my voice shaking. Did you read the article? She paused, then said, You're tearing this family apart. Come to the house tonight. We need to fix this, as if I were the problem. I wanted to scream, to ask why they'd never fixed their neglect, but I said I'll think about it and hung up. I didn't go. Instead, I went to the workshop soldering panels until my hands steadied the rhythm grounding me. Maya found me there, her voice soft. You don't owe them anything, Clara? I nodded, but the ache was a live wire, sparking with every thought of them. The media frenzy grew. I gave one interview to Sarah's editor at TechPulse, speaking calmly about my journey, my tech, my truth. It aired on CNN, and suddenly, I was a face, Clara Nguyen, the inventor who'd fought back. Invitations poured in. Keynotes, TV shows, a Forbes 30 Under 30 nomination. Spark Vision's office became a hub reporters camped outside my team fielding calls. We landed a $5 million contract with a European NGO, and Priya, my investor, pushed for a new funding round, projecting a $100 million valuation. I was living a dream, but it felt like running on glass. Every step a risk of breaking. Ethan's silence was deafening, no call, no text, just his lawyer's threats. Sarah uncovered more, a second whistleblower, a designer who'd seen my sketches in Ethan's office. The evidence was mounting, and Rachel filed a lawsuit claiming intellectual property theft and damages of $50 million. It was a bold move, one that could bankrupt Solar Flare or me if we lost. The confrontation came at a tech gala in San Francisco, a black tie event I'd been invited to as a keynote speaker. I hadn't planned to attend, but Dr. Marquez, my mentor, urged me. Show them you're not afraid, she said. So I went in a $200 dress I'd bought secondhand, my heart pounding as I stepped into a room of industry giants. Ethan was there. I saw him across the ballroom, laughing with investors, his fiancée gleaming beside him. My parents were there too, their faces tight, avoiding my gaze. I felt the air shift when people noticed me, whispers spreading. Spark V, the woman who'd taken on Solar Flare. I took the stage, my speech about innovation and integrity, every word a quiet jab at Ethan's theft. No one can steal your spark. I said, my eyes finding his. It's in what you build, what you fight for. The applause was thunderous, and I saw Ethan's smile falter, his fiancée gripping his arm. After he approached me alone, his face a mask of charm. Clara, can we talk? He said, as if we were kids again, sharing secrets. I nodded, my throat tight, and we stepped into a quiet corner. You're ruining everything, he said, his voice low. Why can't you let this go? I stared at him, the brother I'd loved, the thief who'd broken me. You stole my work, Ethan, I said, my $10,000 idea, my years of sacrifice. Why can't you admit it? He flinched, then leaned in, his voice cold. You'll lose, Clara. I'm bigger than you. I held his gaze, my voice steady. Not anymore. I walked away, my heart racing, feeling the room's eyes on me. My parents watched from a distance, their faces pale, but they didn't approach. The gala ended with a standing ovation for my work, and Dr. Marquez hugged me, whispering, You're unstoppable. The fallout was swift. Solar Flare's stock plummeted, investors pulling out as the scandal grew. Ethan's fiancée left him her Instagram vague but pointed. My parents called again, begging me to drop the lawsuit, saying Ethan was struggling. I listened, my heart heavy, but said he made his choice. So did you, I hung up, tears falling, but I didn't waver. Rachel's case gained traction, the court granting an injunction to freeze solar flares patents pending review. Spark Vision thrived our systems, now in 100 villages, our team growing to 30. I was named to Forbes' list, my face on the cover, the headline, Clara Nguyen, the spark that changed energy. I framed it not for vanity, but as proof of what I'd survived. The gala had been my face turn the moment the world saw me. Not Ethan's sister, but Clara, the inventor who'd fought and won. Have you ever faced someone who took everything from you? What did it take to stand your ground? The weeks after the San Francisco gala were a whirlwind, a strange mix of triumph and grief that left me reeling. I was 26, standing at the helm of Spark Vision, an empire I'd built from the ashes of betrayal, now valued at $100 million, with systems lighting up lives across 6 continents. The office was alive, 40 employees now, their voices a chorus of purpose as we shipped panels to new pilot sites, each one a testament to the $600 million patent portfolio Rachel had fortified. The TechPulse article had done its work reshaping the narrative. Clara Nguyen, the inventor who'd taken on solar flare and won. Ethan's company was crumbling its stock, worthless, its patents frozen by our lawsuit, which now sought $50 million in damages. Reporters called me a trailblazer, my Forbes cover framed on the office wall, my TEDx video at 5 million views. But beneath the accolades, I carried a weight, a quiet ache for the family. I'd lost for the Clara, who'd once believed love could be unconditional. The world saw me as unstoppable, but in the stillness of my apartment, I was still human, still healing. I threw myself into the work, needing its clarity. We launched a new initiative, the AWA Scholars Program, funding 50 women in STEM, with $1 million from my EcoVolt royalties. I'd named it after the girl in Senegal, her words. You made the dark go away, etched into my heart. At the program's launch, I spoke to a room of young women, their eyes bright with dreams, and I told them my truth, the theft, the doubt, the fight to rise. Your worth doesn't depend on someone else's validation. I said, my voice steady, it's in what you build, what you fight for. They clapped, some crying, and I felt a purpose, deeper than any contract or award. I was no longer just fighting for myself. I was fighting for them, for every girl who'd been told she wasn't enough. The program went viral, donations pouring in, and I matched them, giving $500 from my own savings. It was my way of closing a circle, of turning pain into light. Ethan's fall was public, relentless. Solar Flare filed for bankruptcy, its investors fleeing its name toxic. The second whistleblower's testimony, released in a follow-up article, sealed its fate. More emails, more proof that my $10,000 blueprint had been the spark. Ethan lost his fiancée, his connections, his charm, no match for the truth. I didn't gloat, didn't celebrate, but I felt a quiet justice, a balance restored. My parents reached out, their voicemails pleading, their voices cracked with something like regret. Clara, we didn't know, my mom said. Please, let's talk. I listened to the messages, my heart twisting, but I didn't call back. I wasn't ready to forgive, not when their neglect had cut so deep, not when they'd chosen Ethan every time. I saved the voicemails, though, a reminder of what I'd survived, what I'd overcome. Maybe one day I'd face them, but not now. Now I had a life to live, a world to change. The lawsuit moved forward, and Rachel was a force, her case airtight. The court awarded us $30 million in damages, a sum that felt surreal, dwarfing the $10,000 idea Ethan had stolen. I didn't need the money. Spark Vision was thriving, with $20 million in new contracts and a $150 million valuation. But I donated half to the AWA Scholars Program, the rest to expand our pilots. The victory wasn't the dollars, it was the acknowledgement, the world seeing my work as mine. I framed the court ruling, hanging it beside the Forbes cover, a quiet nod to the girl who'd refused to break. Rachel hugged me after the verdict, her eyes fierce. You rewrote the story, Clara, she said. I nodded, tears falling, knowing it was true. I'd taken back my spark, not just from Ethan, but from everyone who doubted me. Life became a rhythm of purpose. I traveled for launches, spoke at summits, mentored young inventors. Through my blog now with 500,000 followers. My YouTube channel hit 1 million subscribers, the ad revenue funding clean water projects tied to our solar systems. I bought a small house, nothing flashy, with a garden, where I'd sit at dusk sketching new designs under the stars. Maya moved closer, her laughter a constant in my life, and Dr. Patel visited often, his pride quiet but deep. Leo proposed to his girlfriend at the office, and we threw a party, the team dancing under fairy lights, strung across the warehouse. They were my family now, bound by choice, not blood. I thought of my parents sometimes, of Ethan, now a ghost in a world that had moved on. I didn't hate them, but I didn't need them either. I'd built my own light, and it was enough. One evening I got a package, no return address. Inside was a small worn notebook, my old sketchbook, the one I'd thought lost with my blueprint. A note fell out in Ethan's handwriting. "I'm sorry, Clara. You were always the real genius." I stared at it, my chest-tight memories flooding back us as kids dreaming of the stars. Before greed and pride tore us apart. I didn't cry, didn't call him. I tucked the note away, a relic of a past I'd outgrown. The sketchbook, though, I kept on my desk, its pages a map of who I'd been, who I'd become. It was my heirloom, not of family, but of resilience, a symbol of the spark no one could steal. I stood on a stage last month accepting a Global Innovation Award, the crowd of 10,000 rising to their feet. I wore a simple dress, my hair loose, my voice clear. "This is for everyone who's been underestimated," I said, holding the award, its weight grounding me. "Your spark is yours. Don't let anyone dim it." The applause was a wave carrying me forward, and I saw Awa in my mind, her smile bright. I was Clara Nguyen, founder of Spark Vision, the girl who'd turned a $10,000 theft into a $600 million legacy. I didn't need my family's validation, not anymore. I had my work, my team, my truth. And I had you, the ones who believed, who fought your own battles, who found light in the dark. Have you ever risen from a wound so deep it changed you? What spark did you find, and how will you carry it forward?